think I can hear you a little bit.
Okay, welcome to the Picard maneuver. Sorry if that was a little awkward. I think we are streaming and it says excellent connection.
Good.
So I think we're good. We'll have to. So we have a new setup again. So last time we were set up at sort of a much nicer sort of studio conference room, and we had a live video for the first episode on Thursday when it came out, but that one didn't work out, and now we're back to remote. But I think we got a good setup here.
And I'd like to mention that this is temporary, and it's because I contracted COVID, so we cannot do it in person now. So we're going to wait till I'm better. So this is a sign of the times. Our first season of the show, we had to end up doing remote episodes because COVID was around. And now, this many years later, we're still having to go back to remote because of COVID. So, but we're doing our best. And this will be our first episode officially now, finally.
Excellent. And we didn't introduce ourselves. We screwed up that part of the intro. Well, my name's Tim.
I'm Joel.
And this is the Picard Maneuver.
Hopefully I'm not cutting out too much, or...
You sound okay to me, but I don't know what that means to other people. The video, as far as I can tell, the video looks really good.
That's good.
No data. What does that mean? I don't know. Anyway,
I'm checking my phone and I'm still seeing it. So
okay, so we want to do our plan today is to do a re-review of episode 1. Tomorrow is episode 2, so we're planning hopefully to do another stream tomorrow. So this is sort of also our way of setting up this new setup, and we're going to go over what our thoughts were on the first episode, and try to have some interesting insight, if possible, that people out there will be good. Is there any other sort of housekeepings, responses we want to do to people?
You know what? That's a good point. I could actually, when we get started, I will, because I want to look at some of the comments Mac made on our very first test stream. Because Mac had some comments about some predictions.
Okay, and I think we'll talk about our own predictions as we get going. So I guess the next step should probably be right into our coverage of the first episode. Is there any sort of first thoughts we have about the first episode?
I was excited. It's been a long time coming. Usually second season of a show isn't this long out from the first season, so it kind of feels like it was just yesterday, but at the same time, it was a while ago. Yeah, so I'm just glad it's here, and I'm excited. Well, more excited now. If this was like a pre-season 2 live broadcast, then I would say I was concerned because I wanted, after the first season, which I wasn't hugely impressed with, I was worried, but after seeing episode 1, which we will talk about, I'm excited.
Yeah, it has a lot to like, and it references a lot of our favorite great episodes and movies in a lot of ways. One piece of Star Trek Picard news I just heard about today is they finished filming, or they finished production on season 3, and that will be the last season. So
yeah, which I don't know how to feel about that. When you sent that to me, I was like, I'm happy that there's a third season, but then I kind of thought, I don't know. It makes sense, I guess, because I'm sure Patrick Stewart is close to, if not maybe retiring after that season. He certainly deserves it. But man, I almost hope the show's not too good now, because it'll make me even more sad when it's over. But all good things must come to an end.
All good things, and I think the style of shows that we do now, where there's arcs and you can sort of plan an ending, I think them knowing when the show was over and sort of doing season 2 and season 3, because I guess they just basically continued with production of season 3 right after season 2 as they were working on it. And hopefully that ends up making it really cohesive and working well for the next 2 seasons. All right.
Yes. Oh, one more note before we officially start. I'm not wearing my official Star Trek hat because it's actually at the other location where we did our first the live stream. Oh, I guess you can see the test live
Let's
stream
see the
where
test
we
live
did
stream.
that one. It'll be back, and I wanted to mention too that we will be back at that location once I'm able to be in person with people again, which will be hopefully by next week.
Good luck.
We'll
Hopefully,
be able to go back to that location because it is set up a lot better, and we're excited to use it.
for
So,
certain. For certain. Okay, so let's switch over to. We've got some screenshots from the first episode. This is the first screenshot. So this was the cold open, which was a really exciting cold open that reminded me of Cause and Effect, which is a cold open that ends with "All hands abandon ship," and the Enterprise just explodes.
that's a famous.
Something very similar happens at the start of this cold open for the entire season, and then cuts back to sort of, I forget the time period they say, but like
48 hours or something. It wasn't like, yeah, which I actually didn't pick up the first time I watched it, that it was such a quick jump back to like 2 days earlier. But when you watch the episode, it makes sense. So this is actually like a cold open to something that the show is going to get to in a very short amount of time. It's a pretty big dramatic way to start season two because there's something really big going on where Picard actually has to enact the self-destruct sequence.
And I thought also what was interesting is we saw Rios was back in Starfleet, and there's a sort of a lot going on very quickly that we didn't really know what's up. But of course, we get to that scene by the end of the episode, and so we'll understand more about what's going on.
Absolutely. That actually, so this freeze frame, do you know what this is from, Tim?
That's the.
You know what it is.
It's not from later. Is that? Did I accidentally? So you have some screenshots in order. Or is this out of order?
It's in order.
Oh, interesting.
What I noticed,
Borg, the thing that came out of the Borg Transnetwork Gateway or whatever it was.
Yeah, which I don't think in the opening cold open. I don't think we saw it yet.
Oh, okay.
But the thing that I noticed is they showed it in the opening credits of the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this image actually comes from the opening credits of the show, and I thought that's interesting that in the opening credits they flashed an image of the ship that was going to be that they hadn't shown yet.
Reveal. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could talk a little bit about that. Did you have a screenshot of the actual anomaly, the transwarp?
I do. It's in there.
Because we'll talk about it when we see it. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty similar to the Unimatrix 1 Borg hub from the sort of end of Voyager.
To me, before you move on, it kind of looks a little bit like the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings, a little bit. But then at the same time, it also looks like some kind of tick or like.
Yeah, like it's it's the center of a nexus, like the center of a spider.
Well, it doesn't look friendly.
No,
is what I'll say.
Borg ships often look ominous. So the first scene, sort of the 2 days back, we were back at Chateau Picard, and he's picking grapes and creating some wine right away, quite quickly.
Yeah, beautiful day at the vineyard. I noticed again watching it a second time, which we hadn't on the first screening, but now that I've watched it a few times, I had said to you one of my notes was that Picard seems more spry, a little more like lighter in his step. And I noticed this again, even from this very first scene where we see Picard. He's eating grapes. He seems really just lighthearted and just he doesn't seem super old. I know he is older than he was obviously doing TNG, but like he just seems more like the Picard from TNG here. I don't know why. It just feels that way. And maybe it's just that he just seems lighter.
Picard in the first season was sort of darker and meeker in a way.
Yeah, he just seems so unsure of himself, and here he's just trotting through the vines, eating grapes, just having a good time.
Although he does have sort of some romantic angst in the first half of the episode. We see that sort of started with a little bit of a glance between
there's the glance.
Him and Laris. Chabon is dead now, they introduce. And,
yeah. So that's one key point in episode 1 of season 2 is that we've lost Chabon. I never say his name right, who was kind of like part two of the two kind of in-home caretakers that are with Picard that kind of hang out in his vineyard. Um, can you go back to Picard again quickly? That shot. He just looks so awesome here. I just wanted you to show it again. Like that hat, he just looks super, super cool. So good on Patrick Stewart for still looking that darn suave at that age. That's amazing.
Yeah, for certain. So there's this glance, and then that there's a scene between the two where they sort of explore the potential of romance between Laris and Picard, which Picard doesn't really seem to know how to react to. And
yeah, although I almost took a screenshot of this because there was a moment where they almost kiss. They start getting closer to each other, and it's just stopped short of that, which was pretty interesting because certainly in the first season we didn't see Picard dealing with love so much, other than it was more about aging and him kind of being old and sick. And now it's like, you know, he's old, but like he's got a lover potentially here, and even the way he's sitting here, like look at him. This is a relaxed, confident Picard. He's got his legs crossed, arms back. I don't know. Tonally, it's already just building him as a stronger character, which I think is great.
And then we get sort of a flashback, which I think is referenced again a couple times when he's in this sort of solarium, and then we see at the end of the episode he's in the solarium again from another perspective. There's a flashback which seems it's sort of like horror movie-ish, and a very sort of gothic horror movie-ish, because
it's pretty intense.
It looks like it's taking place in like 1920s or like Blitz era, edge of London or something.
And we're introduced to Picard's mother, and we're shown some really pretty, like you said, extreme dark flashbacks. At first, it kind of seems really sweet and innocent, and then suddenly I didn't screenshot it, but there's something really scary going on where someone's being screamed at. There's yelling. There's something pretty intense happening.
There's some sort of trauma in his past. And we could talk just a little bit about it, how much death and trauma there is. Immediately in Generations, we find out that his brother Robert and nephew Rene died in a fire suddenly, which was introduced sort of awkwardly as an important plot point for his motivations or for his sort of reflections on his life in Generations, which was themed around everyone getting old, of course. Which we see. The only time I think we ever see Picard's mother is in, I believe, a first season episode. I think the Traveler episode, where no one has gone before. Although I always confuse that with Where Silence Has Least. But anyway, they go to another galaxy, and people's imaginations come to life while they're in this galaxy.
Oh yeah.
We see sort of an overbearing old lady. That is, and that scene, it seems traumatic for Picard too. I suspect because Patrick Stewart, notably, has speaking out, has been an activist for sort of women's rights and stuff. So I imagine some of his personal background might be introduced into that. We'll have more to talk about that, as I assume that we're going to have more flashbacks and more exploration of his youth.
But there's the anomaly. But to finish that off, I thought it was cool because we're seeing, Picard in a new show, and we're learning more about his character and more, motivations for why he is who he is. Because he's a loved character, so it's going to be interesting to see where they go, where the writers go with giving even more backstory on.
And there's definitely surprising, even though we've seen, obviously, 7 seasons of the original series, a new season of this show, and 4 movies. There is still backstory for Picard to explore.
Right. No, exactly, and that's kind of what I think is cool, and hopefully, of course, they know they're dealing with delicate material, and that they could probably upset a lot of people. But so far in episode 1, I'm happy with some of that. There it is.
So we detect an anomaly is detected. To me, it looked right away like a transwarp gateway, and I'd also seen the trailer, of course, so I knew Borg were involved. So I knew it was Borg right away. It's a little awkward where later in the episode, the Seven and Picard don't seem to realize it's the Borg until they actually come out and say we're the Borg. I feel like even the reason that Seven finds it and goes towards it because Seven's going to recognize transwarp gateway technology, even if this one's a little different or a little more temporal or whatever. 7 of 9 would know that stuff, but
Well, and even just like we talked about this when we did our first episode, which we can't show to people, but like the green color. I mean, this is a viewer thing in Star Trek, but like you recognize that, okay, that's Borg technology. But yeah, so this in this scene, it's just initially being opened up in space, and it's not connected to any of the main characters yet.
So the next scene is back at Starfleet Academy. Apparently, apparently Picard is the chancellor of Starfleet Academy, while he's also working on his chateau, on his winery, on his vineyard. Seems like
Did you?
odd full-time job, but either way, he's doing a speech, and I guess it seems like everyone back on Earth is living their best life. They've all rejoined Starfleet. Raffi's there. Elnor's now already been
graduating.
Ensign. And Picard has a pretty
and
great
they make
speech.
Right, and they make note that he is the first full Romulan graduate from Starfleet Academy, which is a big deal because Star Trek's always been pushing forward, anti-bigotry and I guess racism, and there was an episode in TNG where there was where they dealt with that as well, called Drumhead, which dealt with a partially Romulan, which is why I guess that's why this moment I think is even more important, that Picard says like that this is monumentous or a moment to remember, which is that there's a first Romulan graduating. So it kind of harkens.
Simon Tarses was only 1/4 Romulan.
Was he 1/4? Okay. But regardless, he was enough Romulan that there was a Starfleet officer. What was her ranking? She was pretty high up, right?
Simon Tarses.
No, the woman that wanted to.
He was enlisted. He wasn't an officer. He didn't go to the academy.
Okay, you missed what I was saying. I was talking about the woman who wants to get rid of him. What's her ranking?
Oh, she was like a retired admiral.
Oh, was she? Okay.
Back. Nora Sati.
So she wanted to basically persecute him for something he didn't do because she's racist. Anyway, so then here we are, full circle. There he is.
Oh, there's Elnor.
Look how happy he looks. You get a little smirk on his face, like very proud. One thing I wanted to mention about, because you said Picard's here, and it's kind of interesting that he's. Am I cutting out?
I'll be right back, actually.
Oh,
keep
okay.
Talking?
Yep. Oh, he's gone. Okay, so keep talking, he says. For whoever's watching, or whoever does end up watching, one thing I also noticed was that there was I think, implication that Picard wasn't actually at the graduation. Let's see if you noticed this. I feel like they kind of implied or showed, maybe they even showed specifically, I didn't take note of this, that Picard wasn't actually at the graduation, that he was using some sort of transmitter to send himself holographically there. Did you see this?
In this scene?
Before the scene. I'll have to go back and watch that particular moment, because for some reason I thought it showed him like setting something up so that he wasn't. Maybe he was transporting. Maybe that was like a weird transport.
Yeah, I think they had that weird sort of, you step into a transporter and you immediately or keep walking into another place transporter that they've.
And you know what? I got to protest against that.
Fair.
Because O'Brien needs a job.
Imagine they're still transporter technicians, probably more.
Moving on.
Okay, so we find out, we have the introduction of Seven. She's on Rios' old ship. She's still working with the Fenris Rangers, getting some medical supplies somewhere, and some pirates try to attack her, and she
Seventh them.
She takes care of them.
Little did they realize they were up against Seven.
Yeah.
Not
Seven. That was a good introduction.
Seven the character.
One thing I noticed from this scene was they were calling Emmett was the hologram's name now. I don't remember that from the first season. So Emmett, because he's emitted.
Right. Very clever. How many versions of him do we see here? Because there's at least the one.
I think we only saw one in this scene.
Okay.
I think he was one of the ones that we saw last season, the one with the crazier hair and spoke in more of a broken.
Well, he almost sounds like a Pikey, which is like the character Brad Pitt played in. Was it Snatch?
Yeah, which I think is a racial slur now.
Is it? Well, that's
I'm
unfortunate.
not 100% though.
Apologies if it is, but he certainly sounds like somebody that was played by Brad Pitt. I feel like he was maybe inspired by that character. So he's barely understandable the way he talks, but I'm not sure if that's the only version of him we see or not. Either way, he's hanging out with Seven on the ship. Oh, and they see the anomaly here. I don't think I took another screenshot of that, but that's what they're looking at here.
Makes sense. All right, so I suppose all these first scenes are wrapping up, introducing characters. We see Soji and Agnes in the scene. Soji seems to be working as a high-ranking diplomat for the Federation.
Yes. They don't go into detail in what's taking place here, other than when they cut to Agnes, she appears to be frustrated that she runs one. I don't know how she described it, one program, and now she's basically so well spoken and can captivate an audience, and she's kind of like leaning against the bar drunk, and gets hit on by this lovely fellow who I don't think I didn't grab a screenshot of his face, but it was a very Agnes moment because he's kind of like being friendly and whatever, and she's like, "Hey, get lost, you."
Yeah, it was sort of. I suppose Agnes is something of the comedic relief.
She is. Yeah, she had a couple comedic relief moments in the episode.
And I think we find out that Rios is a Starfleet captain, as we sort of saw quickly in the cold open. But he's the captain of the USS Stargazer.
Yeah.
The successor ship to Picard's classic Stargazer. And
Picard's first.
Although Agnes isn't in Starfleet because they're friends,
she's on the bridge.
She can assist him. Oh, now might be a time to jump over to the timeline.
Sure.
So I did an updated our timeline. I think there's going to be more timeliney stuff going on in parallel in this season. So we might get back to a more complicated timeline. But so we learned that Picard Season 2 is in 2401, and we saw that on, well, it's referenced a couple times. It's been a couple years, but we actually saw that on his wine box. And I introduced, they talk about when they find out that the Borg are here in this episode. They mentioned that that the Borg have been in chaos. So when Voyager returned back in 2378, so that was the last episode of Star Trek Voyager in-game, they destroy Unimatrix 1 and basically destroy the transwarp gateways that let the Borg get around the galaxy, and basically left the Borg in chaos. But we don't really see it fully explored, other than sort of them destroying everything and then jumping through the transwarp gateway and making it back to Earth at the very end. So that's sort of the last I think we've really seen of the Borg, other than last season where they were dealing with the Borg cube that presumably was sort of left in that state after this event. And of note, actually, it looks like about twice the time and back, like it's been another 20 years back. Stargazer was lost in the battle with the Ferengi, where the actual Picard maneuver is used.
Yeah, there you go. With our namesake.
And someday I think we should talk about the Picard maneuver and how good of a maneuver it is. I have some theories about how it actually works.
That'd be fun, yeah. And what's the line? It's
there's no defense for the Picard maneuver.
Yeah, well, someone asks, "What's the defense for the Picard maneuver?" And is it Data that says there is none, or something? Which is great because, like, anyway, let's talk about that sometime because that is a fun kind of Star Trek tidbit.
Yeah, there's some great diagrams I've seen online of it.
Another thing that's a very recognizable thing by all Star Trek fans is they do mention in this episode, and we didn't talk about it the first time, is the Kobayashi Maru. And I think at some point Picard mentions that they're updating it.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
It's kind of like tongue in cheek, kind of like a little bit of a joke of like, we're updating the Kobayashi Maru. And is it Raffi that kind of says like, it's about time or something like that?
She always hated it, or it wasn't a good test.
Yeah, everyone hates it, and you never really it's just that one test nobody wants to take. Not as bad as the dang test that Wesley took. That was like.
Oh, yeah.
hey, what happens if you like run into a situation where it's like your father, and what do you do there? The poor
It
guy.
becomes like
That was
a
terrible.
real like dramatic beat about his past.
Yeah, it was intense. So I wanted to get this screenshot too because, oh gosh, his name Rios is smoking a cigar on the bridge, which I thought like it's cool. It would have never been really seen back in the like the old Star Trek that much
Mm.
because Picard would never smoke a cigar on the bridge or have someone smoke a cigar. It was very like formal place.
And to
I
me,
kind of like how they're showing that he's like, yeah, this is I can smoke a cigar here. It's all good.
and to me, it sort of underscored the fact that it is odd that he is now a captain of a ship. Like it seems so
True.
removed from where he was at the end of the last season. A lot of these characters seem very removed from where they were 2 years ago. Like remember kept saying, or I did say that this is like their best lives. I think that this isn't actually where they're going to end up at the end of the season. I think we're going to see a darker version of the last time period, and that the actual timeline that ends up happening might be somewhere in between, or at least that's going to be explored. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Yeah, because once we get to the end of the episode, it definitely gives some hints as to like this timeline we're seeing might be not the one that we experienced for this season.
Hmm. This
Um,
one seems sort of the extreme in one direction, and then maybe we go to the extreme in the other. We'll get to that.
yeah, for sure. Like in this situation, everyone, like you said, is just kind of enjoying where they're at. Everyone's friends. Everyone's their relationships are all nice, tied up in nice little bows. I wanted
There's a
this
ship
shot
of
in
the
here.
USS Stargazer. I really like the design of
Yeah,
the ship. I like how it's the classic configuration of the Stargazer, but sort of modernized. Um, and I'll mention it now. There's a scene later on where we see a bunch of Starfleet ships to deal with the sort of the Borg threat that's appearing, and I like that scene way better than the ships at the end of the last season. Remember when Riker showed up, which was awesome, but all the ships were like the exact same
yeah,
ship, and there was like 3,000 of them, but they were all identical, and it looked kind of silly. And in this scene, there's a similar scene, but it's a fewer number of a more reasonable number of ships, and they're all different ships, and they're all interesting, and I like that
yeah.
better, and it actually fits what like makes a lot more sense sort of in the Starfleet Federation universe.
Well, we do have a screenshot of that if you
I don't think it's easy for me to
but
jump forward in screenshots, so we'll touch on
oh,
that
we'll
later.
talk about it when we get to it.
All right, so there's a scene with Picard talking to Elrond.
Send off.
Um, and I noticed if you see it right behind Picard, there is the USS Excelsior,
Yeah.
which is of course was from the movies, and next to that is the Stargazer, which after this, at the end of this scene, he stops and looks at.
Yeah, so this is again another one of those like everything's great for everyone scenes. Picard's having a great day. Elnor's heading off to do his thing. He ends up talking to Raffi, and everything's great there. Maybe that's where he talks about the Kobayashi Maru. I didn't screenshot that, I don't think. It's kind of
No,
a
but that's fine.
throwaway scene. Nothing really crazy happens. It's just kind of like I shouldn't say throwaway because I do love scenes where there's not necessarily an explosion or phasers being fired. It's literally just like, hey, we're talking. Good luck. He gives him a book. What was the book? I can't read it. I don't remember what the book was.
It
It was
was
like how
mentioned.
to say engage with authority.
I didn't note it though. It was mentioned
Oh
because there's
shoot.
a
Okay,
scene where
let's move
he
on.
asks, he finds,
Mac maybe knows.
he wants the book, and Laris helps him find it, and then later on he does say something about what it is.
Yeah, not super important. Let's move on.
So back at the anomaly,
Waveform.
Agnes helps discover what's going on.
Yes. She drunkenly like takes over on the bridge, and one of the crew members is kind of like, "Hey, you can't do that." And then Rios is kind of like, yeah, she kind of can. And so, and kind of says like, you'll learn a thing or two. So oops, I don't want to mess with my mic here. Sorry. I forget my mic is on my neck. So she basically breaks down the sound that they hear emitting from this anomaly. And at first it's a very Star Trek moment because there's often they hear these sounds that first sound just like scrambled junk. And then as they analyze it and enhance it and enhance it and enhance it, suddenly something becomes clear. And at first it's just kind of like and comment below if that was a good impression of what that noise sounded like. And then she's like, "Wait a minute, everyone! Shut up! Listen." She doesn't actually say that, and it's saying, "Help us, Picard." Ooh.
And meanwhile,
Ooh.
Picard is now in Los Angeles. We figured out
Yes.
on a street titled Forward Avenue.
Yeah, so I didn't screenshot that because I was like, I don't need to screenshot everything. But basically, the street is called Forward Street or Forward Avenue. Can't remember which one. And then he's going into this, what looks like, the outside of like a club or a bar, and it's got 10. And then as soon as I saw that moment, I was like, oh gosh, it's 10 Forward. And of course,
Guinan.
who runs this bar? Who works here? Well, none other than Guinan.
And I think
I would, even for this screenshot alone, I'm glad they made this season of the show.
yeah, it's great to see Guinan again. I think, and I think it's going to pay off because some of her best moments, if you look back of her, are of course her interactions with Picard when they're talking about philosophical ideas of whether androids are people, etc. But she's also been sort of a great plot anchor and guide when it's dealt with time loops, parallel universes, in yesterday's Enterprise and Generations, and
I love it.
And I think
or love.
useful.
Right? Which this scene actually focuses. Oh, did you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he seeks advice from her, or she is aware enough to see that what's bothering him has to do with romance and also choices he's made in his life. Again, echoed a little bit from Generations themes in Star Trek Generations, that movie.
Yeah, so they're dealing with, and I think the themes are pertinent to what's going on and the situation. It makes sense. He's talking about regrets or decisions he could have done differently, or if he had had more time. And she makes a comment about it. The issue wasn't time; the issue was you. Which Guinan always had a way, even when she talked to whatever character, of bringing it back to maybe the thing that character is dealing with personally, that's clouding their judgment or making it hard for them to understand that again the issue is not that he's out of time, because he's not, or that the issue is something that he's dealing with personally, which is great. That's what we want for a character. That gives them depth, right? If she had just said, oh, the issue is time, here's a special watch you can wear that will control time and you'll be able to fall in love with anyone you want, it'd be like, wah, wah. And yet, who would he fall in love with?